So when this came out and before I even knew what it was about, I saw an article online. And the headline claimed that Amanda Knox was upset that they took her story and twisted it. Now, if you're not familiar with her story, she is an American who was studying in Italy and ended up in prison sentenced for murder of a fellow student and spent many years in there. However, she was later fully acquitted and released, and yeah, it's kind of a messed up story. And I've seen a documentary on it and I've heard her on a couple of podcasts. But honestly, I can't remember all the details, but I think it's safe to say that this movie was indeed inspired by her story. Because there are a lot of similarities here, and if they just didn't want to pay for the rights to the story, it's a little bit questionable in my opinion. However, this one doesn't even claim to be based on a true story to begin with. They don't use her name, and a lot of things have been changed too. Like the location, it takes place in France and not Italy, so yeah, it's not really her story, is it? And at some point you just have to let it be what it is and not get caught up in the details. So anyway, as you might have caught on to, this is a movie about a young American woman stuck in a French prison, claiming to be innocent, but all her legal options have been exhausted. And actually, this movie is more about her dad than her, and he's played by Matt Damon. And we follow this story through his point of view as he's doing his best to support her, morally and otherwise as well, because he believes her to be innocent. And he's trying to do whatever he can to provide the evidence needed to prove it, which is virtually impossible as it turns out, but we follow him as he goes through his daily life anyway. And yeah, things go from there, and I actually really liked how this story developed. And it was an interesting choice to tackle this story from this guy's perspective, from the dad's perspective. The story also chose to go in some interesting and unexpected directions as well, which I really liked, and I honestly found those parts of the story to be really compelling. The parts that didn't directly even relate to the daughter and her case. But of course the daughter and her peculiar situation does affect everything else in some ways. It's kind of inevitable, I guess, as she is understandably the dad's first and foremost priority. And what this movie did with the story and where it went with it, I still liked quite a bit. There's one part in the last stretch where it goes a tad bit Hollywood. I could have done without that part, but at the same time it did bring us to the ending. And I think it was just a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that we don't see a lot of genuinely bittersweet endings to movies these days. But here we have another one, because it is indeed nothing if not bittersweet. And I very much liked how the movie spent a good amount of time setting that up too. Otherwise it wouldn't have been nearly as effective in the end as it actually was. And a lot of that wasn't just the writing either, but also the performances. I especially loved Camille Cottin in this. I thought she was just great, but Matt Damon definitely did his thing as well. So you know, at the end of the day, I didn't really have too many issues with this one. I thought it was pretty good. Not exactly anything all too special, but pretty good. So I'm kinda leaning towards giving this one something like a high 6. Boop. However, would I recommend it? Yeah, I mean, it's not at all a bad movie, so why not check it out? Or you could just skip it too, after all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.